Welcome back. It's just over 5 weeks until the start of the Leaving Cert, the Junior Cert. It's one of the most stressful and anxious times of many a young person's life.
So is there anything parents can do to help lighten the mental load of their stressed out students? Well, family therapist Richard Hogan is here with some advice. Good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning.
Good morning, Richard.
See you again.
It is a stressful time for many families. Does it affect every family at exam time, Richard?
I wouldn't say it affects every family, but the majority of people, I think, experience stress. Or I would say it impacts every family. For some families would want their child to be more stressed, maybe.
Yes.
And other families want their child to kind of, calm down and gain some perspective on the actual exam.
I think parents would be more nervous if their kids weren't nervous about it, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Would you transmit that nervous energy to your kids? Is that one of the problems?
That's one of the problems. And I think it's such a learning moment for your child because, as you know, we've all done it. It can be a monster of an exam. It's something that we live with for the rest of our lives, because it does shape, in some ways, where we go.
Although it is getting slightly different in terms of
Continuous assessment.
Assessment. And, when we did our Leaving Cert, it was all on the line over those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, has it helped by the fact that the curriculum's changed and you learn through the senior cycle or the junior cycle?
To be honest, I think it's becoming more stressful.
Really?
The way it's set up.
Really?
Yeah, I think what they're learning if we want to get into that, it's a big conversation. What they're learning in the Junior Cert isn't helping them for the Leaving Cert. So they find themselves with the huge pressure of the Leaving Cert, they're at sea because, say for English or history, they haven't been writing big essays in the Junior Cert.
Right.
So they're starting from scratch and they've only got 2 years to pick it up and get with it. So, and then the extra 25 points for maths. There's so much more stress on kids today, I think, doing their exams.
So it's about finding a balance, I suppose. You want the child to be aware enough to concentrate and to actually work towards their goal. So what are the signs that the child is stressed too much?
Well, I think, when you experience stress and you see it, it's really about the demands in place and the child exceeds their resilience. And, they might be overwhelmed, they might be able to sleep, appetite might be decreasing, they're not going out, they're becoming overwhelmed. And the thing is, we're hardwired as mammals to experience stress. And we're going to experience stress throughout our lives. And it's important that they develop the coping skills to be able to manage the Leaving Cert, because it's not that kids get, some kids are born resilient and some kids aren't. It's just that they haven't been modelled that behaviour. And so as they go through their adolescence, they don't understand how to cope with when something arrives and something stresses you out. How do you manage that?
And I suppose each kid is wired differently in terms of how they study.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with a child who you think, as a parent, isn't putting the effort in, is thinking he or she's only doing a couple of hours? How do you sit them down?
That's a very good question. I gave a talk last week in the Institute of Education around this issue, and a parent asked me that exact question.
Right.
How can I get my child, and this was just for the Junior Cert,
to focus?
To focus, get studying. He said, the parent was literally describing, standing over the child, and he was like, how can I get him to study? And I just said to them, sometimes we need to do a bad exam. Sometimes we need to do
shock.
We need to fail sometimes. We talked about that the last time I was here about success. Success is sometimes about failing and learning to overcome the fact that we didn't succeed.
You can probably afford to that, Richard, in the junior cycle, but when it comes to the Leaving Cert,
but Simon, that's one.
I know you can go again.
Then that's one thing I'd say when adolescents come into me and they're really overwhelmed by the Leaving Cert. I often quote this idea to them. It's from systemic family psychotherapy. It's called the map is not the territory, and what it means is, what we believe isn't always what the reality is. And students come in and they believe that there's only one go at this thing.
Yeah,
and I said, you can do this thing. You're 18, you can do it again if all else fails. I had a student last year who didn't get medicine, and she deserved it. She was super, super intelligent and just great. Didn't do a great HPAT. And I met her coming off the train, and I was thinking, how are things? Are you okay? She said, I'm just going to do it again. Got medicine in college this year, studying her medicine. I mean,
and actually,
we need
at
to get
that
some
stage in your life, if you're 16, 17, 18, a year is a gigantic window in terms of maturity, isn't it?
Absolutely, but it's not a long. But it's not a long time
in the bigger picture.
In the bigger picture, but exactly, you do from 18 to 19, 20. You mature so much in those years.
You talk in terms of tips and how to help our kids when it comes to anxiety. The first thing you mentioned, which is interesting, I think, is work on the atmosphere in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I hear parents saying to me, "We're on eggshells, right? We're walking on eggshells. You can't say a word to them." I mean, that's not conducive to studying, No. Or the other way, the parents saying, "Get up and study," because they're stressed that they're not studying.
Yeah.
And there's all these kind of pressures on it, and the fact the parents are meeting their child's anxiety with their anxiety, so everyone is anxious, and all conversations are designed around the exam, and all conversations are, drenched in anxiety and the result and the exam and all that. It's really important that you take a break, you take a step back from it. You gain some perspective on it. It is only an exam at the end of the day. You know, it does mean that you go on to college, but you can go again and you can go into college another way. And just one thing I would say, that it's really important that students hear this, and this is why it's such an important conversation 5 weeks out from the Leaving Cert. I meet them a lot, you know, I meet a lot of stressed students, and they have it in their head just to go to UCD or to go to Trinity. And when I try to point out to them, there's so many wonderful universities out there.
Yeah.
And that if you, you know, and if you want to go to UCD, which is it's a lovely goal to have in your life, you can go as a postgrad. I mean, you don't have to go in as an undergrad.
Of course.
If you don't get it with the points, you can go another way to it. So it's really about gaining perspective and, you know, taking a step back from this thing.
Yeah.
The advice of taking, you know, taking a breath and taking a step back is great advice, but isn't it just a pressure cooker as we're now entering? You're now seeing the finish line.
You're in the optimal space. What I say to students at this point, what you study now, you will remember on the day.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in that optimal time where, like 5 weeks out, you're going to remember what you learn. So that's you're in a really nice place. But if you're going to be consumed by it, you know, you shouldn't be studying past 10:30 at night. I mean, that's just it's not. I mean, if
you
you're not,
do need to have your wind down time.
Exactly, and we all had different things. Like I like going out with my friends playing hurling or whatever. You need to have that space. It's just as important as when you're studying, the downtime.
Is there an acceptable amount or an average amount of hours, let's say, for a junior cert student first?
A junior cert, at this stage, 16, say, generally be a junior cert, 35 minutes, 40 minutes study sessions.
So really? You might do small blocks?
Small blocks.
Okay. And how many of them?
Maybe 5 or 6 coming up now when you've got like time off, let's say, weekends, you'd be doing 5 or 6 a day. Right. And for the Leaving Cert, then you'd be going, because your brain has matured a lot more, you might be doing hour study sessions.
Yeah.
But you'd be taking 5 or 10 minutes in between each hour. Okay. It's really important that you have that downtime, that you're relaxed and you're kind of unwinding. And the phone, though, is I always come back to it. That's not a good thing to use to unwind. You know, that's gonna provoke, make you more anxious as well.
Well, you could see something that would upset you or just get you in the wrong frame of mind. Then, I love one of the tips. Is just very simply
relax.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm saying about the map.
Done, though,
the map is not the territory. I know it is much easier said than done, but you know this isn't a penalty in the World Cup. I mean, you can do it again. You can do it again. You can go again as many times as you want. It's about gaining perspective. And if all your friends want to go to UCD and you really want to get to UCD, or a thing I see a lot is it's a really important thing that, you know, when I talk to young adolescents and they're saying to me, you know, I'm really stressed about this exam. I try to understand, unpack it. What does it mean for you? Yeah. And I say to them, just say you get those points. Let's just say you get the points that you've always wanted to get, and you got 525. You're doing law and Trinity. That's your dream. Who do you ring first? That's when you figure out what's going on. Let's say, I ring Mom. And what does that result say to Mom? Well, I'm much brighter than you thought I was. So now the exam has come to mean something. You know, there's meaning in it.
For that reason.
Yeah, there's a reason in there, and that's when you think about conversely what happens when you don't get it. Then your psyche collapses.
Well, is that up to us as parents to try and unpack that thread?
I think it really is.
Or is starting a conversation like that with our already stressed teenager going to add fuel to the fire?
I would say to parents listening to this, think about that.
Yeah.
Who are they trying to prove something to?
Yeah.
Or is it perfectionism? Again, an awful thing that would cause you a lot of stress. Yeah. But who are they trying to prove? And then try to change subtly that dynamic in that relationship.
Yeah.
You know, and that them achieving and getting into UCD or Trinity or whatever it is isn't the meaning of their lives. I mean, it's a part. It's a nice part.
I remember you were on before, talking about the
success,
different paths
kind of like,
as
well.
That because I remember you're always on with us after the leaving results are out.
Yeah.
Like, not to panic.
Yeah.
There are paths to whatever your goal is.
And that's such an important thing for young adults to hear. There's so many paths. And as you know yourself, you probably didn't start out thinking about this is where you'd end up in your life.
You never end up working in what you studied.
And that's the most fascinating part, isn't it? I mean, that's the journey, and that's the really lovely part of life.
I was trying to be an accountant.
You were trying to be...
That went well, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what I always think of Robert Frost, knowing how way leads on to way. Because you just keep going and going. And that's the journey, and that's the wonderful part of life.
Richard, we talk to you for hours.
Thanks very much.
Brilliant advice, as always, Richard.
Good to see you, Richard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, coming up after the break, how to style a summer dress to perfection. Fashion is up next.